Good afternoon, everybody. This is Gary Husted here with G2 Home Services, your kitchen and bathroom remodeling specialist. And today I'm here with Justin Sehl from Stone Solid. Justin, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. As Gary mentioned, my name's Justin. I have a granite business local to the greater Tampa Bay area. We service Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, all the way up into Citrus County, actually. Our specialty is stone countertops. I started this corporation back in 2010. Before that, I had a stone business up in South Carolina that I started in about 2003. That's actually when I got certified to work with Quartz. At the time, Silestone was kind of the first major quartz manufacturer in the world, and they require you to go through almost a month-long certification process. The market's changed a lot since then with the influx of all these other quartz manufacturers. That's when I started in the stone business. Before that, my father and grandfather had a custom cabinet shop since before I was born. So I tell people I was sweeping a cabinet shop at 5 years old. That kitchen remodel kind of runs in my blood. But
Right.
my mainstay now is stone countertops, and it's been that way for probably the last almost 18 years or so.
Wow. All right. And you kind of mentioned about how long you've been in business, and we know each other. I guess basically when I first was starting my business, I actually worked for your dad for on and off there for a few months in the property preservation business, and obviously he had that cabinet shop, so I helped do some stuff like that, and that's how we became acquainted back then. But before we started running the video, me and Justin were just talking, and it's been about 10 years that you've been doing projects for us. For the granite and everything else over the years. So that's awesome. That's cool that we over all the years, you're probably the only subcontractor of mine that I've actually become good friends with and have stuck around that whole time. So I really do appreciate that. And just so everybody knows, that's mainly because the effort that Justin puts into everything and how much he cares about the projects. We'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward as well. Um, you kind of touched a little bit too on your backstory and everything. You were in South Carolina doing some stuff there, and something that kind of struck me that I wasn't sure of. Two things really. I didn't know that Silestone was the first big, quartz manufacturer, and also that that you had to go through that certification process. I know you mentioned that you were certified in Silestone, but I didn't realize it was that rigorous. You want to talk a little bit about what that process was like and what they were trying to push to you as far as that training went?
Yep, I'll give you a little more background on it. The idea behind quartz surfacing or engineered quartz countertops, I believe, came along in the late 90s, where granite is found in mountains large enough that they cut big blocks out of it and then cut that down into individual slabs, which you utilize in a kitchen. Uh, Quartz surfacing or engineered stone, in which case like a silestone, Cambria, Zodiac, Caesar stone, all those are 93% quartz by weight, and the quartz isn't found in mountains the way that natural granites and marbles are. So they actually have to take the big quartz boulders, gets broken down into little chips. And then the way it's been explained to me is they basically, it goes through a mixing process where they add the different colors to get the different patterns, and they add a resin or binder that holds it together. It gets kind of laid out on a big, almost cookie sheet. It goes through a process. It's like a vacuum compaction and almost gets baked, and they create a slab, and then they grind it down and polish it. So you end up with a finished product that looks like a stone slab, like any other natural material. Um, Silestone is owned by a parent company named Cosentino. They've been in the stone industry, I believe, since the late 1800s, early
Wow.
1900s, around a long time.
Yeah.
They were the first really major brand to endorse and start this process of natural or engineered quartz slabs or quartz surfacing. They are based out of Spain. Back when I went through my certification process, 2003, 2004, somewhere in there, they had 8 machines in Spain that they would make these slabs on to the tune of, I think, like $22 million a machine.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
sure figures have changed,
Right.
fast years. But interesting kind of point as far as them being the original major brand. They were trying to figure out if it made sense to keep shipping these slabs all over the world, like here to America, or if it made sense to have the machines here in America, so they could make it in both countries.
Right.
They built two of those machines, and I believe it's in Minnesota, and then a couple of them in Canada. They ended up deciding that it was just more cost efficient to have one production area in Spain and to ship the material. So they sold the two machines that were, I believe it was Minnesota, to two brothers that started Cambria. And
Really?
DuPont actually bought the machines in Canada and started what was then called Zodiac Quartz, which now they've embraced. DuPont also made Corian, which is a solid surface like acrylic material. So Zodiac and DuPont have embraced that Corian name, and now Zodiac's called Corian Quartz Surfacing.
Okay.
But kind of something I always thought was neat was here that Cambria is now probably almost more recognized than Silestone is.
Mm-hmm.
When Cambria got their start, it was on machines that Silestone built.
Milestone. And
So it kind of all goes back to Silestone being that original major brand. And now, of course, there's so many different
right.
brands. Anyways, all that being said, back then, when you only had a couple big players, if you will, Silestone, Cambria, Caesarstone, they wanted to kind of control the market. They didn't want it to be something that just every fabricator in Tampa, for instance, if there's
Could
30
get their
fabricators,
hands on.
right, they had exclusive rights. In a state like Florida, they would only allow, say, two companies to manufacture. I believe in South Carolina, there was only one that was allowed to manufacture. And
Oh,
then
wow.
guys like myself had to get certified underneath one of those plants that was authorized to use their product. For a somebody coming in that had no knowledge in the business, it was a month-long course
Yeah.
that involved shop time where you had to learn and train in every aspect of the fabrication process. And then you had to ride along with, the installation crews and certified installers to learn how to handle the product. Somebody like yourself or myself that had that experience of a cabinet shop, probably laminate countertops that had
Mhm.
the concept down of how to fit a product,
Sure.
level out a countertop, so on and so forth. You just had to learn tolerances of how to
Right.
work with stone. So for myself, the course was a week-long process instead of a month-long process.
Right.
You were assigned a certification number, and whenever you finished a job, your certification number got tagged with that client, for their warranty purposes. If there was ever an issue, kind of that came back on you. And then
Mm-hmm.
fast forward all these years later, there's so many different Quartz brands
Right.
now that would sell to anybody, which is a good thing, for the consumer. It's helped the price come down because
Sure.
there's more options for the consumer.
Right.
But in a sense, those larger companies like Silestone and Cambria had to kind of waive the certification process and open it up to the entire industry the
Just
way
to
the
be
other ones
competitive
did.
almost.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So you don't have to, you still have to go through a little bit of a process to get set up, but really there's no difference in working with quartz than there is a natural stone such as granite, or marble quartzite. So
Right.
uh, that's where that certification's gone through. It's been neat to watch the industry change over the last
Oh,
18
I
years.
can only imagine. I mean, I think you and I talked about this last time I seen you with, we were talking about that Ubatuba granite and how
Right,
popular that used to be.
right.
Now it's getting to the point where that was to the wayside. And, you mentioned that you've had a couple clients looking for it recently, again, and it's just funny to see the trends in the industry and how things have changed so much. I mean, I've been in business now for 10 years, and like you said, you've been 18 years plus. I mean, I can only imagine how much has changed for you,
Yeah.
seeing what I see and knowing what I know as well.
Yeah, no, I remember hearing stories of my father and grandfather saying, back in the probably 80s, they were removing some people that had, granite countertops to put in laminate when it was like the new big thing, and Corian took off kind of in the
Right.
90s, and now you're ripping out Corian for,
Yeah.
quartz and granite, and then quartz is really taken on strong. I would say in the last probably 7 or 8 years
Yeah,
since the white and gray theme has come out,
yeah,
because we can get into that later whenever you like about the
right.
pros and cons to a marble or a quartz that looks like marble and such.
Yeah, and we will get into that. And you kind of touched a little bit on some of the other manufacturers. Silestone, obviously, Cambria is a real big thing. I've had a lot of customers asking for Cambria lately, which we've done a couple of those jobs. What about Pompeii and Quantum are a couple of the other ones around that you and I use, pretty significantly. Are those more of a local manufacturer? Or are those somewhere in the United States, or what are their kind of qualifications and how do they rank as far as being there with the Silestone and the Cambria and those types, in your opinion, obviously.
Yep, no, obvious. So your Silestone and Cambria are probably the two biggest names in the business. There's a couple others, Caesar Stone, LG, Viaterra. Those are national brands. You're worldwide, really. You can
Mhm.
go be in China, you could be in Russia, wherever, and order um, a, a color, a Cambria color, and it's going to be the same exact material no matter where in the world you order it from.
Right.
Uh, when you get into like a Pompeii or a Quantum, they're more localized to the United States. They are distributed throughout the United States, but they're more of a regional brand, I would call it.
Okay.
Um, Advantage, they're the exact same product in terms of being that 93% quartz by weight. Durability is exactly the same as the larger name brands of Silestone and Cambria. Um, Silestone and Cambria, they come with a little higher price tag because they are the, kind of the originals and have that worldwide recognition.
Right.
Uh, Although they're coming down a little bit in price just to be able to compete with these other brands, such as a
Hmm.
Pompeii and a Quantum, just, they have to remain competitive.
Sure.
A major advantage to Pompeii and Quantum is they are housed here in Tampa.
Oh, okay.
Southstone, their location is more towards Sarasota, Ellington. Cambria is in Orlando. So to see full slabs would be a little further to travel. Not that that's not a big of a deal, but the major advantage I see with Quantum and Pompeii is they sell half slabs. So the average consumer's kitchen is, say, roughly 60 square feet. Port slabs, without boring you with all the little details, whether they come
Yeah.
in a standard or jumbo, they average around 55, 56 square feet. So if a consumer has that, traditional kitchen, kind of like in your background that I see
Yeah.
behind you right now,
Yeah.
that would take about a slab and a half. With
Right.
Silas and Cambria, you have to buy that two full slabs.
Mm.
For Quantum and Pompeii, you can buy a half of a slab. Obviously that translates to less cost per customer. It's
Sure.
the same in terms of durability and how the slabs are made. Just overall is going to save the customer money uh, to be able, because of the ability to purchase half slabs, and then also if they do want to do full slabs, it's going to save them time
Right.
to be able to go look at full slabs.
All right. And one of the things that you kind of touched on there a minute was about for the customers to actually be able to look at a full slab. Now, in the granite world, in my opinion, and I'll let you get into this, but in my opinion, it is kind of important that sometimes, depending on how particular the customer is, to actually see the individual slab because the granite is obviously not all exactly the same. It's a natural, like you said, it's a natural stone coming right out of the earth. They cut it into slabs, so it could be a little bit different, decide depending on what you have there. Now, the quartz slabs, for the most part, are very, very similar. Is that correct?
Yes. And if I could comment just a little bit more on that, with my own business, we have 10 natural materials, granite or marble, that we buy in bulk that are our quote unquote stock materials.
Right.
So if a customer has that kitchen like we were talking about that requires just over one slab, the advantage to going with one of our stock colors is if I bought, say, 10 slabs in that exact color and you need just over one slab, we're not buying that whole additional second
Right.
slab to finish out that job. The
Mm.
way, like we talked about with a Cambria or Silestone, now in the natural stone industry, granite and marble, they don't sell half slabs as well. So that would be one of the advantages to going with one of our stock materials. Now, within our stock materials, to answer your question about seeing a whole slab or not, the quote unquote builder grade colors that we have that are more
Right.
of a speckly pattern, a giallo ornamental, an ornamental white, a new Venetian gold, or like a Luna Pearl gray sardo. When my bulk batch of say 10 slabs runs out,
Hmm.
I make it a goal to find as close of a match as possible to it, and we're pretty successful.
Right.
So in one of those specularly builder grade from us, I'm confident that a customer can view a sample and be happy. We also always have a picture of the slab. But
Right.
when you get into stones that have more movement, such as brown fantasy is probably the number one selling color right now.
Right.
Viscon white, something like that, or an ocean blue. A 6 inch by 6 inch sample is not going to give a customer an accurate representation of what that entire slab looks like. Now,
Right.
usually I can always furnish you with a picture of that current bundle that we're cutting from,
Hmm.
what it looks like, but that 6 inch, brown fantasy, one corner of the slab looks brown, had brown tones.
Right.
The other almost has like a greenish tone.
Yep.
So you're never going to get that out of that 6 inch by 6 inch sample. So in a builder grade color, speckly, with us, I'm confident in a small sample.
Yep.
With a more flowing pattern, I say it's important to at least see a photograph, but photographs don't really do it justice. So
Right.
it's a good idea to see the full slab.
And I will touch on that too. And that's again, one of the main reasons why I continue to stick with you, Justin. And your one obviously is your knowledge. Anybody that's watching this video today can already tell how knowledgeable you are in the industry. But also the fact that you do these things in your business to help the consumer, having those slabs available and making sure that you can, you're obviously not going to charge them for a whole second slab if they need 3 square feet off of another slab, things like that that come into that. And that just goes to show how you are as a person and also how you run your business. And you're exactly right with the speckled patterns. I mean, those are very similar. And I'm going to go ahead and upload a couple pictures of the ones that you were talking about with the speckle patterns, versus the brown fantasies and the river blue, I think was the other one that you said, and get those in here so people can kind of see the difference of those while we're talking about them, because I think that's a very important point that a lot of the quartzes are very, very similar or exact, from one slab to the next, where these do have a little variation. But in my opinion, that's part of the beauty of them is the variation that comes into them and everything else. So,
100%. And same thing applies to the quartz colors. Well, same, but a little bit different as far
right.
as whether or not to look at a sample. If the quartz slabs are very similar, almost identical from slab to slab. Unlike granite, you'll get variation from slab to slab.
Mhm.
When that block of natural material, gets quarried out of a mountain and it's 10 feet by say 7 feet by 7 feet, as they cut each individual slab, there's going to be variation.
Sure.
Quartz is a much more controlled pattern, so you won't have that much variation, if any, from slab to slab. But as
Right.
far as like we were discussing, that 6 inch by 6 inch sample, if it's a quartz pattern that's more speckly or a very tight pattern, um, that you can look at I think their samples are usually like 6 inch by 12 inch samples. You
Yep.
can get a good idea from that sample. But when you get into the quartz slabs that are meant to look like marble and you get that flowing pattern on those, even though it is an engineered slab and the slabs may look similar, it's hard to get a good representation. For instance, like a white and gray marble or the different Calcuttas, depending on where that sample's cut out of the slab, it's
You
hard to
really
get
don't
an
know.
idea of how thick and how much of that veining there is. So
Sure.
similar in the sense, depending on the pattern. If it's a speckly pattern, I'm confident in the samples. If there's any sort of movement or flow to it, then I
Mhm.
still recommend a customer viewing that full slab.
Great, great, great. And while we're on the subject, let's touch a little bit on, in your opinion, what are the major differences, obviously, between granite and quartz and marble, and what are some of the benefits of each, and kind of talk through that process a little bit.
Yep. So let's first say you got, the natural granite and marble, and quartzite we'll throw in there as well because it's starting to become more popular. And then you've got engineered quartz, such as silestone, Cambria, Pompeii, Quantum. that we've talked about. So we'll separate them into the two different groups before we kind of break up those individual
Okay.
groups. So
Okay,
we got
perfect.
natural material and engineered stone material. They both have pros and cons. The major ones, major advantage to, let's start with quartz or the engineered stone, is they harp on no maintenance. There's no annual sealing that needs to be done. When it's made through that vacuum compaction process, there's the way it was explained to me 18 years ago is as they're compacting all this quartz together, they're sucking the air out of it so that when you end up with a product that nothing can penetrate into. So
Okay.
you don't have to seal any pores because it's a non-porous material. That being said, I would never, I'm not going to say it's stain proof because I would never say take a black Sharpie and go color a white quartz stone because
Right.
it's going to be a nightmare to get it off.
Right.
But what it is nothing can penetrate or seep into it, and therefore it doesn't have to be sealed.
Right.
That's a major plus to quartz or engineered stone. When you say a negative to quartz, is it's not as heat resistant as the natural materials. Now,
Okay.
I've heard it flash rated up to like 300 degrees. Basically, they say if you pick up a pot off of your stove and it's hurting your hand, you can set it down on your quartz, but they want you to immediately take a hot mitt and take it back off.
Right.
If you try to heat up quartz or heat up anything, it tries to expand. Well, the problem is that resin or glue that holds the quartz together is not going to expand, and that's how it would end up cracking. A
Okay.
long time ago, probably the first time I ever saw a cracked countertop, I remember a customer had, I walked in, couldn't find it, and they had a pot of boiling water on the stove. And I was like, well, I don't see a crack. They took it off and set it right on the quartz, and you could watch it actually do this and
Oh my
separate.
Lord.
And I'm like, well, that's, you're not supposed to do that,
Right.
but that's the major disadvantage, if you will, to quartz is if you're a customer that likes to take a cast iron skillet off of your stove and set it right on a countertop, quartz wouldn't be for you. But it is it's far more heat resistant than the laminate or corian. If something was burning your hand and you set it down on a laminate or corian, that's going to be toast. It's instantly going to be done.
Right.
Uh, so that would be the major pro and con to quartz.
Okay.
Engineered stone, or not engineered stone, natural stones, your granite, marble, quartzite, are far more heat resistant. Um, I've heard people say, if you try and heat anything up, it's going to expand. Anything could
Of
crack.
course.
But
Right.
there's always a little disclaimer, right?
Sure.
I can tell you, I've gone camping and around a campfire, set a piece of granite in a campfire, set a piece of quartz in a campfire. The granite was unscathed. The quartz actually caught on fire and ended up crumbling.
Really?
You're probably not supposed to do that. Probably horrible for the environment, right?
Hey,
But
but you know what though? I mean, that was a good test though, and it was worth a good story too, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. So although they will say anything can crack due to heat, in
Right.
8 years in this business, I've never seen granite or a natural material crack due to heat. I've never taken, a blowtorch at thousands of degrees to it, but I've
Right.
never seen it crack due to heat. So
So
that's
just
the
the
main.
normal everyday wear and tear of a pot on the stove or something like that would be fine. Obviously, we talked about that little disclaimer that we all talk about when we go and meet with them, but so that would be basically, more or less you're okay with something like that for the granite.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, as far as if there's a negative thing to the natural stone, it's that it is naturally porous, which means things can absorb into the stone. Now, that's where you've heard the term, did you seal your granite? Granite
Mm,
needs to be sealed, so on and so forth.
right.
Whenever we install a kitchen, after we're done cleaning and wiping everything down, the final thing that we do is to apply a sealer. Sealing your stone is very easy. It's no different than cleaning your stone. After your stone's clean, you basically spray it on or wipe it on, let it set for about 10 minutes, and then take a dry rag and wipe off any residue that didn't seep into the stone. And that basically seals off the pores so that nothing can seep down into the stone. Now, you do get some sealers, Dry Treat Plus, they rate it for up to 25 years.
Oh wow.
Uh, I don't think it's been out for 25 years. I could be wrong. But I don't necessarily trust it, especially when your countertops are an investment. People spend thousands of dollars on them.
Right.
So I tell customers, listen, every January 1st after the holidays, clean your countertop, take everything off your countertops, clean them really good, and then reseal them.
Yeah.
You can't over seal a natural stone. It's only going to accept so much into the pores. The rest of it isn't going to seep in and you just wipe it off. But if you do
Right.
take literally 10 minutes, 11 minutes, if you do that once a year, you're not going to have an issue with it.
Well, and
Uh,
that's and like you said, that's just gonna help maintain it and keep it looking its freshest and looking its best. Because I have seen stone countertops where people don't have them sealed, or a lot of times even other installers I've gone on like, yeah, we just had our kitchen done. I wish we wouldn't have went with granite because 3 months ago one of the kids spilled some orange soda and didn't clean it up and it stained it.
yeah,
Well, if the installer would have put a sealer on it, maybe it wouldn't have been as bad, or what I mean. And that's when you go with some of the lower end customers. When somebody comes to you and says, "Yeah, I can install that level 2 granite for $23 a square foot," be weary. You know what I mean? There's a reason why. You know what I mean?
right, no, even in my own personal house, my wife and I bought a spec house. So here I do granite and kitchens for a living, right?
Right.
And I do my own. But yeah, no, we were just moving in. We weren't even moved in yet. And a real nice neighbor brought us over pizza and sodas and
Mhm.
stuff. And we were in the move-in process. And I don't remember, how like one of the pizza companies will give you like that butter dip your crust
Yeah.
in.
Yep.
It gotten spilled on the granite, and then come back, the next day you're moving in. Well, it stained my granite before we even
Really.
moved to the house. So
Right.
I'm ended up having to extract the stain out of my granite, which is doable. That's a whole
Yep.
nother conversation.
Yeah.
But before I even moved in my house, but there to
Mhm.
that point, it wasn't sealed. Of course, I then sealed it, so we were good to go.
Right. Right.
But anyway, all that being said, the sealer we use is actually it's made by Akimi. It's a nano stain repellent. So after your countertops are sealed, the picture on the bottle actually shows kind of like when you wax your car and it beads up on top of
Yep.
it. Um, well, I've shown my wife in my own house after it was sealed. You can put water, oil, or something on it, and it'll stand up like wax on your
Okay.
car.
Right.
But and there again, it's so simple to do.
Right.
Uh, you can buy that product that I was talking about on Amazon. It's just I tell customers do it once a year. You'll never protect your investment is
Right.
really what it comes down to.
Yep.
Now, as far as the other, like I said, we touch on three different natural materials:
Hmm.
granite, marble, and quartzite. Um, they're all very heat resistant. They are all porous. Granite is far more resistant or resilient against staining, but it still has to be sealed.
Right.
Uh, the the disadvantage to natural marble is that even with the best sealer, you could seal it once a month, and you have to be weary of what they call etching, which is
Okay.
anything acidic that would eat into the surface of the stone. So as a test, I took two pieces in my own home, tried what I felt the two best sealers were, waited a couple days, and then I put a lemon on it, a lime, vinegar. I think we poured red wine and just let it sit for like 8 hours, not even sitting overnight.
Right.
Took it off and cleaned it, and where the red wine mostly came off, that wasn't bad. But where the vinegar, the lemon and lime were sitting on the stone, you could actually feel how it was rough. It
Oh
had
wow.
eaten the finish away. So for somebody that has basically just a show kitchen that they don't cook in, it's hard to beat the natural beauty of a real marble. The
Right.
problem is there's really no way to protect it against etching. The last thing you want is someone made themselves a cocktail with a lime on it, left it on the countertop, and overnight that lime juice ran down the side of the glass, and you just basically ruined a very expensive piece of marble. So
That makes sense.
granite,
That's something I wasn't aware of. Yeah, I knew marble was very very testy, I'll say, to those things. But I didn't realize it actually would eat the finish away with those acidic products. So that's something good to know. And that's, something I can obviously talk to my customers about that ask me about it.
Yeah, and so that, to that point, I never recommend putting a natural marble in a
Mhm.
kitchen. We do put natural marble in bathrooms because usually you're not going to have lemon and lime. The,
Sure.
the thing to be careful of there is a lot of people use vinegar to clean, and
Yeah.
that would be a big no-no. It's really just soap and water is what's recommended for most stones, but especially marble. Granite, you don't really have to worry about etching. It's going to be more resilient to that. I can't say that I've ever seen granite etch due
Okay.
to a vinegar or a lemon or lime. Quartzite is extremely durable. Some people would say even more durable than granite.
Okay.
Uh, you can kind of get that natural marble look with that natural veining in a quartzite. You can kind of get that marble look, but with the durability of granite. So for somebody that wants a natural material that doesn't want to go with the engineered quartz, they want that natural beauty, but they don't want, say, a granite pattern. They want
Right.
that movement. Quartzite's the way to go, but quartzite's typically going to be more expensive than most granites and marbles. So
Okay.
that's basically the pros and cons to all the different or the most common stones that we would use in a house.
Okay. And I know there's obviously tons and tons of different edge profiles and everything that you guys can put on the stone. But what are some of the more common edge profiles that you use, and why? And also maybe some of the more uncommon ones and things like that.
Sure. So we have 5 standard edges we offer to customers at no additional upcharge. What's been extremely popular right now, especially with the white and gray famed kitchens or white on white kitchens, is just a flat eased edge. Basically, it's a square, not sharp edge, or for people that are going for that modern, sleek, squared off look, that's the edge that's kind of the go-to edge, extremely popular.
That's what
Uh,
I've been pushing a lot of lately too on any of my white or the quartz looking white grays, things like that. So, and I'm
yeah, and
sure
that
I
would
got that from you, but yeah.
that would be what's visible in that kitchen as your background right there.
Right.
Now, for instance, if you look at the background, behind Gary, the squared off corners, it's beautiful. It's that square modern look that most designers are going for in that application. There's a little bit of a disagreement, when you have kids, and say they run into that corner of that
Yeah.
island, whether or not you'd want to have it rounded. I mean, I say that, whether it's rounded or square and you run into it, it shouldn't cut you, but it's going to hurt. It's
It's
going
gonna
to leave
hurt either
a mark.
way.
Eventually, those kids are going to grow up, they do it one time and it's kind of like the that'll learn you type thing,
Right,
they're not
right.
going to do it again. But I totally understand and respect anybody that does want rounded corners, even with an eased edge like you have
Mm,
uh, behind yourself. So that's one edge. Um, and we can keep the corners square like what is in that photo, or we can round the corners. Really, an eased edge is about an eighth of an inch round over on the top
yep.
and the front of the edge. That's an eased edge. The next step in terms of rounding it over, it would basically off of measurements, instead of that eighth inch eased edge, it would be a quarter of an inch. So quarter of an inch back, quarter of an inch down. That's a good compromise edge for customers that kind of like the square look, but want it to be a little more rounded because they're worried about bumping into it. Then the third edge would be a half-inch round over or half bull nose, and it's a half of an inch back, half of an inch down. It's a more traditional look. It's been popular for years. It's kind of a
Right,
timeless look. You don't see it as much though with the more modern style kitchens, the white on white.
right.
But it's a very popular edge. Then the two other edges to complete the 5 standard is a bevel, where it's cut on a 45-degree angle. There again, it's based on measurements. It can be a quarter of an inch back, quarter of an inch down, and that would be your angled bevel edge, or a half of an inch back and a half of an inch down. And you cut that same 45-degree angle. Looks really good on an angled kitchen. Years ago, that was considered a premium edge that they would upcharge for.
Okay.
We consider it a standard edge. So those 5 edges are no upcharge through us. We do have, and basically all those edges are achieved with the countertop, sitting face up. Any edges where we have to flip the stone, for instance, like a full bullnose edge profile, where you're doing that half on the top, then the granite has to be flipped and done on the bottom, it's twice the work, so we do have to charge for a full bullnose.
Hmm.
Uh, Most customers prefer the half bullnose for two reasons. When you do a full bullnose and you're looking at that edge, from your eyesight point of view, you're cutting away the underside of the stone. So it makes the stone appear thinner when you have a full bull nose. I've also had some customers tell me that if you're washing dishes, water on the countertop, you spill something with a half bull nose edge, it falls down, then rolls down and then goes to the floor. With a full bull nose edge, it follows it all the way around back to the cabinet and then down the face of the cabinet. So the two negatives to a full bowl, three negatives to a full bull nose is one, it costs more. Two, that it makes the stone look a little thinner. And then three, in the event you spill something, I've never experienced it myself, but I've heard customers say that it'll follow that round back to the cabinet. So a
And that
full
can
bull
be
nose
that
is
can be detrimental too. If something that's spilled winds up inside a drawer that you didn't know was in there. I mean, that could be tough too, especially I can imagine with kids or something like that, and they don't realize that they do something like that, and it's a mess for mom and dad later. So yeah, I get that.
absolutely something sticky, 100%. But then you got more fancy edges, like an OG edge you probably
Mhm.
heard of, or a triple pencil. We can
Yep.
do all. But those come with, a decent price tag just because of the labor that's involved in it. But I would say, probably that square eased edge is what we do 70, 80% of the time right now,
Hmm.
especially with these modern, white on white kitchens. Second and third most popular edges would be probably a half full nose or a quarter bevel. But we're happy to do them all at no charge, additional charge for those five standard edges.
Okay. And we you touched on the upcharge involved with the those ones that are not standard, obviously. And that's a linear foot charge, correct? So basically, if there's depending on what it is, that's going to be an additional charge there. And I know we had a project one time where the customer had a decent size island and a bar top, and he wanted that upgraded edge profile, and that cost him quite significantly more to have that edge profile because there was just so many feet extra of that lineal edge that had to be done. And that's correct, right? Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
oh,
Yeah.
100%. And that's even, when you go to some of the big box stores, for instance, for granite, they may have a price granite starting at this, but then when you get your estimate contract, those five standard edges that we're giving to you for free, a lot of times they're charging for that linear foot. So, kitchen that you have behind you right there could very easily have 40 or 50 linear feet of edge.
Right.
So if you have a fabricator that's going to do that edge work for free on five standard edges, or if for say on a bevel edge, they're going to charge you for each foot of that on 40 or 50 square feet, that's going to add up. So it's kind
Sure.
of one of those, it's a good perk I feel that we give to customers to give them that five
Agreed.
edges for free, versus finding out down the line that they're going to be charged additional for something that they really shouldn't be.
So, and I'll touch base on that a little bit because that's something, and I hate to compare our industry to this, Justin, but I feel like some of the salesmen in this industry are like car salesmen. Hey, we can put you in this model right here for X amount of dollars. Well, I want this model. Well, yeah, but this is basically the same model, but they don't tell you you're losing the heated seats and the sunroof. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we're kind of equating this to, guys, is that Justin, a lot of the features that are standard with Stone Solid and Justin doing the work are not standard somewhere else. So there are companies out there that can offer you that level one or that builder grade stone for very inexpensive, but they're going to tack on the charges for those linear foot of those those edge profiles and some of the other perks. Justin, some of his stock colors he offers sinks at a discounted price or for free even on certain things, and so there's perks to going with a company like Justin that has the experience and that is also, we use Stone Solid as our only stone provider, but the reason being is because there's no games, there's no hidden processes. Everything's out on the table. It's all in front of us, and we can see exactly what's going on. And when Justin is transparent with us and shows us what we're and we know what we're getting into ahead of time, then it's very easy for me to be transparent with the customer. If I have to go to a customer and say, yeah, we can get you this stone and it's starting at $65 a square foot, but then I have to go back to that customer and tell them, oh, by the way, it's going to be $25 a linear foot for the edge profile. That doesn't make me look very good either. You know what I mean? So it's this is a great way of doing business and a very honest and open and upfront way of doing business. And that's why I like working with you so much, Justin, because you constantly uphold that and you have over the years. And that's both I think both of our businesses have grown a lot in the last 10 years since we've known each other. But to see that we both have maintained that moral and keep our customer first attitude, that's what's important to me, and that's why I enjoy doing these videos. And I've really enjoyed this video doing with you today, Justin. I did just have one more question for you. Have you had any really weird request or any bizarre request, or what's the strangest request that a customer has given you about wanting with stone or anything along those lines?
I'll tell you why I think about how to answer that question. I wanted a couple other things. Talking about the additional line item upcharges that we don't charge for to
Yeah.
be where a lot of fabricators or companies will charge you for every faucet hole that you have to have drilled in. If you want a
Yeah.
soap dispenser, if you want an air switch, and charging you to cut out the cooktop, if you want to pop up electrical outlet, and some of these things, for instance, a $200 cut and polish for your undermount sink, for your vegetable sink,
Hmm.
$150 for your cooktop, $10, $15 a faucet hole, $35 for each electrical outlet. All those line items can
Yeah.
translate to a considerable amount of money. And those aren't things that, we consider that as part of the installation. So
And
those
those
aren't,
that was $200-300 worth of stuff you just said right there. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And that's something that again that they consider as a standard fee that other companies may or may not be charging additional for.
exactly. Yeah. So just something I wanted, to comment on that. As far as weird applications, we've done so many things, man. We've had people say that, they wanted the front of their house to look like art. We've taken two slabs, that basically almost looked like butterfly wings and stuck them on the front facade of someone's house.
Really?
We've hung stone from the ceiling. This customer had a gorgeous shower. I mean, it's probably bigger than my whole bathroom, but they wanted the ceiling like to look like the sky. So they found this
Oh
specific
wow.
and we had to hang stone from the ceiling and support it, until the glue dried. And then where their drop down rain shower fixtures were, we were trying to bolt it behind the covers, to support it. And just there, some people come up with some wild ideas, but if it can be done, we'll find a way to do it.
And obviously, I mean, Justin, you guys have been doing work for us for so long. I promote you to everybody. I have customers that call me all the time that just say, hey, I'm just looking to get granite countertops done or quartz, and I'll refer them over to these guys, and I'll continue to always do that just because of that about you, your work ethic, and the conversations that we've had, and especially with these conversations that we're having today, just kind of reinvigorate that for me. I really, really enjoy the way that you do things and the way that you have helped my business grow. And I know that hopefully I've helped your business grow over the years. And hopefully we both continue to do so, man, because this is great.
No, absolutely, man. We enjoy working with you guys. And I mean, as far as integrity, let's call it that.
Sure.
You're a man of integrity. I try to be, like you said, customer first. I mean, we're booked out probably about a month on installs, and we
Hmm.
don't do any advertising. Everything's
Right.
word of mouth because
Yep.
when we look at a job and we walk away, we want to say, would we accept that in our own house?
In
And
our
at
own
the end
home.
of the go, then we want to make it right. And it's kind of funny little story. My daughter, I've got two daughters, a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and the
Hmm.
7-year-old kind of starting to understand the concept of having a job and working. And
Right.
she said, "Well, Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be like you. I don't want to have a boss." And I said, "Honey, anybody I work for is my boss. At the end of the day, and
Yep.
that's how you feel about your business. I know,
Hmm.
and that's how I feel. Because at the end of the day, it's about making a customer happy,
Yeah.
so that they're going to refer you to a friend or hopefully use you again. And that's
Yeah.
why we enjoy, working with G2 Services, because we feel like our goal or our mindset is in harmony with each other. So I appreciate you, man, for all you do and even taking the time to make this video.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, no problem, man. This was a great video. I'm really glad we did this today. Guys, if you have any questions, Justin, why don't you go ahead and drop your contact info? Send me over one of your cards and I'll upload it here at the end too as well, so I can just put that up there. But if you want to give them your email address or your phone number or anything like that, we can get them set up for that. They can reach out to you there.
Yep, sounds good. I'll send you over a business card, like you said, so you can pop
Mhm.
that up on the
Sure.
screen. If anybody's got a pen handy, it's 725015379. And email, you can just get it off the card. It'll be easier.
Okay, perfect. And guys, once again, I am Gary Houston with G2 Home Services. You can check us out online at facebook.com/G2 Home Services, or check out this video series that we're doing, Meet the Pros. This is our Meet the Pros video with Justin Sehl. Justin, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you, Gary. Have a wonderful day, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You too.